welcome back to another episode of the Daily Flip podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're flipping through a story talking about TikTok and how it's not actually the prime deal that some people have made it out to be when they're saying that it's coming underneath American ownership. We'll get into all the details. We'll get into the lies, the data sharing provisions, blah, 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 blah. But more accurately, we will get into why you should not be using TikTok. So with that said, here is the daily debate. How often do you spend on TikTok or a domestic equivalent, Instagram, basically a social media app? And if you knew that they were tracking your keystrokes outside of the app itself, would you continue to use them? Maybe that's an allusion to what TikTok's doing. You'll have to listen to find out, but I want to know your opinion. Throw it down there in the comment section. With that said, let's jump into the actual article. It comes from Daily Caller. Headline reads, Gordon Chang, China's TikTok deal, great for China, not for America. And it has a lot of summaries about different points that they make throughout the very short article, but you know how it is nowadays, like Axios, everybody wants to make things into bullet points and make it consumable. So I'll read one of the most important things here. Quote, NPR reporting suggests that China will continue to own and control the algorithm, often referred to as TikTok's secret sauce, and the new joint venture will license it. The New York Times reported in September that China would still own the algorithm. Any Chinese involvement in the curation process, especially considering Beijing's past use of algorithms, is unacceptable. And then the very next quote is why understanding what's going on with the algorithm, not only because they can recommend things, but also because in order to cultivate and hone the algorithm, they have to be able to have access to content that you see, is the other disturbing part. Quote, everything is seen in China. A member, of TikTok's Trust and Safety Department said in September 2021. A Beijing-based engineer known as Master Admin had access to everything. And Beijing-based engineer is a quote, Master Admin is a quote, and access to everything is a quote. That comes directly from one of the members of their Trust and Safety Board of TikTok/ByteDance Trust and Safety Board. So what is actually happening? We've heard for a while that TikTok was going to be banned. Then it's not going to be banned. And there was a law saying that they have to ban it. And then Donald Trump said, whoa, hey, slow your roll, guys. I have some people that are interested in buying it. And they gave him a whole bunch of extensions. And now the deal seems to be going through on the U.S. side of things. Quote, the TikTok deal, as revealed by Chu, would solve the data security issues. Oracle, which will own 15% of the new joint venture, will store user data in the United States in its cloud computing data centers. The arrangement, however, does not adequately eliminate the algorithm problem. Chu stated in his memorandum that the joint venture will be responsible for, quote, retaining the content recommendation algorithm on U.S. user data to ensure the content feed is free from outside manipulation. And yet, as we said before, there is still a super admin that can have access to any of the data, even if it's being stored off location. Now, the technicals of that are a little fuzzy. And once again, we're taking the word of this trust and safety advisor saying that TikTok's been able to see everything into... we're using his idea and his statement as a way to project into the future, to know for certainty whether or not they'll have access. I personally am cynical and believe they will, but that doesn't mean that there's inherent proof that we know they will, because it's not supposed to be stated as such in the deal. So, with that in mind, there's a little bit of room to not be as worried. But the control of the algorithm itself is something that Beijing, as I highlighted by that quote up top, and there's another quote down about a paragraph below if you're looking for it in the body of the article itself, that also says, quote, Beijing will never allow a sale of the algorithm offshore, end quote. That's not surprising. When you have something as powerful as a recommendation algorithm that can provide content that alters the mind, changes the opinions of users, you're never going to give that up. Meta's Instagram is Meta and Instagram, so Facebook, Instagram, all of their companies, even Twitter, X, even Snapchat to a lesser degree, but still, any of these apps that recommend content to you on a constant basis and want to keep you in there in the feeds, going, and therefore can recommend you products, therefore can show you certain things, shape your interests, shape your ideas based on the type of content creators that they show you, of course that's dangerous. And just because it's coming from a outside country, aka China, and they're the ones that have access to the algorithm and they can do it for malevolent reasons. They can, influence us to hate our own country, as Daily Caller points out. That's not why it's bad. Just because it's an outside country, all of these things that actively shape your way of thinking. Even YouTube falls into that category. You can curate a lot of what you watch on YouTube, but the recommendation algorithm is very strong. All of these programs are not necessarily healthy. And then when you add on top that it's an outside country, maybe you should consider doing what I would recommend, which is stop using these apps, at least to the degree that you can. And for a while, I was off all of them, but I had to be on one of them, two of them actually, for work. And I'm not going to say I hated every second of it because it was useful. It was a great tool. But I'll be honest, sometimes I would get caught in the algorithm, and then that's why I deleted it off my phone. I only had it on my computer for work. So these sort of steps, I feel like, are not something I'm asking of anybody. I think it's the honest to God good solution, and it kind of eliminates TikTok as a factor. Why would we care if they have an algorithm that recommends things to certain people in our country if nobody uses them? It's not, in my opinion, the government's job to come in and say, whoa, you're not allowed to do this. It's our job as consumers to recognize things that are bad for us. But Daily Caller has a different recommendation. They want a full ban. And if you want to go read the rest of the article, I can link it down in the description below that like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Podcast, Podvine, as well as the Twitter handle at Your Daily Flip, where I post links to these episodes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the 6 and 6 episodes that come out on Tuesday and Thursday, which is international news. I know I'm cutting this one a little bit short, but that's because I'm just getting back. We're recording it and we're putting it out within the next 30 minutes. So if you're listening to this tonight, on the night it went out, Monday the 28th, 29th, then good. Hey, thank you. And if you're listening to it some other time, thank you for coming along and choosing to watch it not on the day of. I know the algorithm prefers that your first growth comes within 24 to 48 hours. So with that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.